So the next speaker is Dr. John Andrew Morrow, who's also known as Sheikh Ilyas Islam. Incidentally, he reverted to Islam at the age of 16. So he's a senior scholar of Islam and full professor and the director of the Covenants of the Prophet Foundation. Besides being a professor, he's an author and research scholar. He has authored a large number of books and articles on a wide variety of topics, including Prophet Muhammad, Malcolm X, Shiism, to name a few. He is best known for his critically acclaimed study on the covenants of Prophet Muhammad with the Christians of the world. The covenants of Prophet have generated over 300 reviews, articles, and interviews, along with speaking engagements around the world. The book has received the blessings of Pope Francis, the Patriarch Theophilus III, the Patriarch Bartholomew, as well as the Holy Council of Fathers from Mount Sinai. He has also received the blessings of Sheikh Habib Ali al-Jifri, the Grand Mufti of the Muslim world and the University of Al-Azhar. He has also received the blessings of prominent Shia scholars from around the world. The Covenants of Prophet Muhammad with the Christians of the world has inspired the Covenants Initiative that urges Muslims to abide by the treaties concluded between the Messenger of Allah and the Christian communities of his period. The Covenant Initiative has been signed by hundreds of leading scholars, academics, and activists from the Sunni and Shia community. Upon the request of Christian leaders, the Covenants Initiative has spawned the Genocide Initiative, which seeks to have the crimes committed by ISIS and other Takfiri terrorists characterized as acts of religious, ethnic, and cultural genocide. The Genocide Initiative has inspired a series of resolutions in the U.S. Congress, resolutions that recognize the genocide that ISIS is committing against Christians, Yazidis, Kurds, Sunnis, and Shias. In November, Dr. Morrow issued a statement against ISIS. The statement reached over 1 million Muslims. Partly inspired by his actions, over 70,000 Muslim clerics in India issued a fatwa stating ISIS is an un-Islamic and that Takfiris are to be deprived of Muslim burials. Starting in February, Dr. Morrow will be teaching a course on the Covenants of Prophet from Taqwa Academy. So Taqwa Media is launching a pilot program which is going to be called Taqwa Academy. And the purpose at Taqwa Academy is to create awareness regarding Islamic issues. This will be an online course for 10 weeks, and the idea for this course will allow students to navigate the political process from a grassroots effort. This is a pilot program, as mentioned, and its success will be determined by the engagement from our community. There are sign-in sheets at the front to the left of me at the table. Please see me for additional details. I also forgot to mention from an Islamic literacy standpoint, if you're interested in that, there are sign-in sheets on the right here. So with that, I want to invite Dr. Morrow to the podium with your loudest salawat.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين صلوات والسلام على نبينا حبيبنا عزيزنا أبو القاسم محمد وعلى آله الطيبين الطاهرين المعصومين صلوات. I would like to relate to you the story of the covenants of the Prophet Muhammad, peace and blessings be upon him. The story begins in 1990. In 1990, I'm an undergraduate student at the University of Toronto in Canada. I am taking a course on philosophy of religion. And the professor, time comes to select a topic for the major essay in this class, and I propose to write an essay about jihad in Islam. The professor accepts, and I diligently get to work, and I conduct all kinds of research and so on, drawing from Quranic verses and ahadith and so on in books of history. In this essay, I quoted what is known as the Ashdinameh, the covenant of the Prophet Muhammad with the monks of Mount Sinai. Now, this is one of the first documents that I was exposed to when I was a young man on a spiritual quest. I started to study all kinds of different religions and Islam when I was 13 years of age, and I eventually embraced Islam when I was 16 years of age. And so it was during those years that I came across this document, a document that is truly remarkable. It was a covenant that the prophet made with the monks from St. Catherine's Monastery in the Sinai in Egypt. And he granted them freedom of belief, freedom of religion. He commanded the Muslims to protect their monasteries and to protect their churches. And if they started to fall apart, to help to rebuild them, in order to keep these people faithful and loyal allies to the Muslims. So it was a truly remarkable document in terms of its care and its compassion and its justice. So I quote this document in this essay. I submit the essay to the professor, and eventually I get it back, and I believe I got 29% on it. It was like 29% or like 32%. It was like a 30-page essay, and it was very well researched, or so I thought. But I was a humble young man, and I've always respected my teachers, and I've always honored elders, and so it hurt, but I accepted it, and I came to the conclusion that perhaps my paper did deserve an F. So I complete my undergraduate studies, my honors BA, my MA, my PhD. I continue my religious studies, for decades. And we're about in 2009. And so, I've been an assistant professor, an associate professor. I'm now a full professor. And a publisher is interested in publishing an anthology of my scholarly articles. So I start going through old essays that I wrote and things that I published for this anthology. I come across my essay, the first essay I ever wrote at the university level on jihad in Islam. And I look at it. And I say, in retrospect, this doesn't look so bad. This is pretty good. So what do? I take this essay, and I submit it for peer-reviewed publication. And guess what? It's reviewed by peers. It's reviewed by scholars. It's reviewed by academics and professors. And it comes back favorable. Absolutely, we'll publish this. It was at that point that I realized that, it seems that professor was prejudiced against Muslims. So this was perhaps my real taste of Islamophobia. And so after the original version of my first university essay was published, I said, you know what? And this was written before we had this problem of terrorism and so on. I mean, for God's sake, this is 1990. All right, this is not after September 11th or anything. I said, I really should expand upon this essay. And I was no longer satisfied with having an English translation of a primary document. I wanted the original Arabic document. So I start this quest to locate the document, the original Ahad Nabawi, the original Ashtiname in Arabic. And so I start doing research, and I come across a document that was purported to be the Sinai Covenant. But then I read it, and I soon realize that this is a completely different covenant. The covenant in question was published in 1630 in Paris by a Maronite priest by the name of Gabriel Sionita. And it was published in 1630. It was republished. It was a bestseller for centuries in Europe, this covenant of the prophet. So I realized that this is not the document that I'm looking for. That document had actually been brought back by a priest by the name of Pacifique de Provins, or Father Scalinger. Now, he had been traveling throughout the Ottoman world and the Safavid Empire, and during the course of his travels, he discovered a letter of the prophet. Apparently, it was discovered in a monastery in the Levant, in the area of Palestine, Lebanon, Syria. According to some scholars, he found it at the monastery of Mount Carmel. And so he brought it back. It was a letter of protection that the prophet had given the Christians of that area. He brought it back to Europe. He presented it to the King of France, who was famous for collecting ancient manuscripts from the Middle East. He gave it to this priest, Gabriel Sionita, who published it in the original Arabic, along with a Latin translation. So I continue trying to find the original of this document. And I come across another one, allegedly the Sinai Covenant, but I soon realized that no, In fact, this is a document that was found in the cathedral of New Julfa in Isfahan in the early 20th century by a scholar who was conducting research there. And so this was a copy of a covenant of the Prophet that was certified and authenticated by Shah Abbas, on the authority of Imam Ja'far as-Sadiq alayhi salam, and so on. And so this was another document. And so I continue my quest, and I find yet another document, a covenant of protection that was given to the Assyrian Christians. Finally, I find a book in which there is a picture of this Ashtiname. And so I contact the publisher and I say, would it be possible for you to send me a high-resolution copy of this document? And she says, well, I can't, but perhaps Father Justin can help you. At that point, I figure that Father Justin, probably just a parish priest, an Irish Catholic or something from Boston who perhaps had traveled to St. Catherine's Monastery and took a picture. So I email Father Justin, and I say, is there any way I can get a copy of this document? And he said, sure, just let me go downstairs. And it was at that point that I realized that I was corresponding with Father Justin of Sinai from the Holy Council of Fathers from St. Catherine's Monastery in Egypt. He went downstairs to the lobby of the monastery, took a picture of the document, and sent it to me as an attachment. MashaAllah. Allah works in wonderful ways. And so finally, I had a copy of this document. And I asked him, Father Justin, are there other covenants of the Prophet out there? And he says, yes, they have a copy at Mount Athos on the sacred mountain in the monastery of Simonopetra in Greece. He said, but good luck getting access to that document. We are Greek Orthodox, and we can't even get access to their archives. So, good luck getting access. So at that time, the book was published. My critical study and everything, the history of this document, questions of authenticity, commentary, studying them according to the rules of Hadith studies. And I'm invited to Georgetown University in Washington to give a lecture on the covenants of the Prophet. During the course of that lecture, I made a joke. I poked fun at the monastery of Mount Athos. I said that compared to the monastery of Simonopetra, Harvard University is like an open admissions community college. By the time I returned home from that speaking tour, there was an email in my inbox from a person I didn't recognize by the name of Monk Kosmas. And he says, I hear you're looking for something. And he says, we have not only one, but 2 copies of the covenant of the Prophet. Now, these are covenants that were never revealed to the world before, that they have housed in this monastery for centuries and centuries and centuries. And mashallah, he was kind enough to forward me 2 high-resolution copies of these covenants. And so the quest continues. There are some people who suggested in the 1600s that Gabriel Sionita had his time up. Dr. Bandali, how much time do I have?
Let's say
couple minutes?
Yeah.
Okay. So that's not the end of the story, because the story continues after the publication of the book. There are some people who suggested that this Capuchin priest, Pacifique de Provins, Father Scaliger, had forged this covenant. He made it up. And so I set out to find the original copy that he brought back from the monastery of Mount Carmel. And so I tried to figure out where did it end up. And I said, well, maybe it ended up in the King's Library. And then I said, French Revolution. They burned all the libraries. And they did indeed. However, a large portion of his collection survived and is now in the National Library of France in Paris. And so I'm going through an ancient manuscript filled with ancient Christian documents. And I look at the index because it's been indexed by the librarians. There's no sign of anything. I flip through it. And what did I find at the end of this manuscript? a copy of the covenant of the Prophet Muhammad with the Christians of the world, the original copy that had been brought back by Father Scaliger that was already several centuries old. So I confirm that he did indeed bring back a covenant from the Middle East. So after I give the lecture at Georgetown, I'm invited all over the place. I'm invited to Europe. I speak in France and in Belgium and the Netherlands and the United Kingdom and other countries. I meet a Syrian priest by the name of Reverend Nadim Nasser, and I give this presentation on the covenants. And he says, you know what? I saw a covenant of the Prophet. I say, mashallah, where? He says, St. George al-Humayra in Syria, in the monastery, they have one on the wall. And so I contact the monastery, and the abbot at the time was Father Damascenos. And I asked him about this covenant, and he sent me a copy of the covenant, and it's virtually identical to the one that the priest had brought back to France in the 1600s. And this is a monastery that has been under siege, besieged by these Takfiri terrorists. Can you believe that? Surrounded by people who profess to be Muslims, who are hell-bent on destroying this monastery and killing all of the priests and all of the monks. And yet, their most cherished possession, it's priceless to them, is on their wall. And it's a letter from the Prophet Muhammad guaranteeing them protection for their lives and their property and their religion and their faith. So I will wrap up my little presentation on that note. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.